The SEC will not play for a national championship for the second consecutive year in football. How did we get here? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers who are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's dive right into it. As Friday, we were in Dallas ahead of the Cotton Bowl semifinal between Texas at Ohio State, and Greg Sankey was on the field. Shout out Greg Sankey, said hello to us. And for the game, told Pete Thamel of ESPN, I relish being the underdog. It's refreshing. We enjoy being underestimated, meaning Texas was the lone SEC remaining representative and was an underdog to Ohio State. Well, Texas fell to Ohio State, 28-14. And after the game, Quinn Ewers, Texas quarterback, said, it sucks to be on this side of things. Longhorns made the 14 college football playoff a year ago, lost to Kalen DeBoer's Washington Huskies in the semifinal. And on Friday night in the Cotton Bowl, Texas's season ended in similar fashion. A first and goal play from Ohio State's 1-yard line could have set up for the game-tying touchdown. Could have been 21-21. We could have been in overtime. But that quickly became a fourth and goal from the Ohio State 8. Quinn Ewers was pressured, stripped by Jack Sawyer of Ohio State, and ran it back 83 yards for a game-sealing touchdown to make it 28-14. Ewers said after the game, it's tough. In the life of a competitor, it sucks being on this side of things. Back-to-back years, pretty much a game decided by one play. It's hard. All the work that we put in, being in the Final Four back-to-back years and coming up short 2 years, it's tough. But I think that's how life is. You're going to get punched in the face with some hard moments. Quinn Ewers did finish the game, throwing for 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. But Texas, they make back-to-back playoff appearances under Steve Sarkisian, but they have still not advanced to the national championship game since 2009 and have not won a national title since Vince Young in 2005. By the way, that's 20 years now heading into next season. Steve Sarkisian, after the game, talked about the decisions there on the red zone play calling, and obviously the big one was the second down call, trailing by 7, just over 2 minutes to go. Longhorns had a first and goal from the 1, and again, unable to punch it in. Sark saying after the game, it's unfortunate circumstances because it was a really nice drive by the offense to get all the way down there, first and goal at the 1, and we don't score. You quite frankly don't deserve to win a game that way. Sark explaining the play calls. He said the first 2 plays, we threw the ball into the end zone. We got back-to-back pass interferences. When we got down to the 1, we went to a heavy package. We ran it. We obviously didn't get much movement at all. We had a plan to try to get the ball out on the edge. When we got down there, they went to big people. I was on the far side where it got leaky, but that's one of those plays. You block it all right, you get in the end zone. We didn't. Caleb Downs, in fact, did come through and made an incredible play, just reading it all the way, and that's what led to the loss of yardage. But Kirk Herbstreit, after the game, reacting to the sequence, he said, my reaction, I think Chris Fowler and I were getting ahead of how good Ohio State was in the red area, how dominant they had been. Penn State game stands out in our minds. As good as Texas is, it's tough to do. He said, I'm not ever going to second-guess any head coach, especially a guy like Sark who works so hard at that. But I thought you might see a wrinkle of Arch Manning perhaps coming in that situation with his ability to run, maybe a zone read, maybe get him on the edge. Again, I'm not going to second-guess him, but that wide sweep with Ohio State's defense, as fast-flowing as they are, led by Caleb Downs, that was a tough one to go to. Tried to catch them napping, and they didn't get to it. Now, Damian Harris, former Alabama running back, he put out there on his podcast, Until Saturday podcast, said, nothing makes me more mad as a running back than when people try to run the ball east and west when you're on the 1 yard line. My man Bill Belichick would have put out a roadmap. The end zone is this way, not that way. And thus Texas's season comes to an end. It was a heck of a run. Matthew McConaughey put out a message after the game, said, a hell of a fight tonight, men of Texas Longhorns football. After the pain subsides, be sure to love on each other and yourselves for so much that you did so well so much of this year. It was a season to be proud of. Now, Quinn Ewers struggled early on in this game, and there were some even calling for, hey, should we maybe change things up and see what Arch Manning could do in the situation. We did see Arch come in a 4th and 1 play where he ran the football, got 8 yards, was close to fumbling it. It was a pretty close play, but the wrist or elbow, whatever, did get down. But Quinn Ewers telling Pete Thamel on Friday prior to the game that he will indeed enter the NFL draft. It's a little bit of a surprising development because we've heard for the last week or so that there was a $6 million NIL offer on the table from a school out there. And that was from On3 Sports, and some people kind of saying, all right, well, Quinn Ewers is considered a fringe NFL prospect as it is. His arm talent isn't the best, but, we will see. And some rumblings that even Notre Dame is the school that was perhaps offering him that NIL deal. So we'll see what happens, but it sounds like Quinn Ewers is done with college football and heading off to the NFL draft. One other note here, Kelvin Banks, Texas left tackle, has been phenomenal the last couple of years. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He officially announced yesterday he is heading off to the NFL draft, singled out Steve Sarkisian and his position coach Kyle Flood as being great leaders and mentors for him, and was recognized twice as SEC O-Lineman of the Week, was honored winning the Lombardi Award and the Outland Trophy. So congrats to Kelvin Banks. Best of luck to him moving on to the next level. Now, Paul Feinbaum, he joined the Matt Berry Show, and he was asked about the SEC not being in the national championship this year. He said for the second season in a row. Here's what Paul Feinbaum said. He said, it's significant. I know everybody likes to think that those of us who live in SEC country try to hide things. Even today, we're still arguing for Alabama to get in, but that is a dramatic moment. It's a semifinal moment in time that I didn't expect, especially with a 12-team playoff. It really is amazing when you think about the last time the SEC wasn't in a title game. That was before Nick Saban. Urban Meyer had just arrived at Florida. Les Miles was about to start roaming the sidelines. To think that we were in that moment is cause for a lot of concern, at least in the southern part of the world. He said, I don't care what any of my colleagues say in the South. There's no way to sugarcoat this year for the SEC. There's no way to alibi it. There's no way to say anything other than we got a team from Indiana and a team from Ohio playing for the national championship in Atlanta. So it will be Buckeyes versus Irish in the national championship game. We'll see what that looks like coming up. But yeah, feels kind of weird to say that the SEC not going to be playing for a championship for the second straight year. By the way, the ratings did come out on Thursday night for the national champ, or rather the semifinal between Penn State and Notre Dame. And they were down from 27.8 million viewers who watched the Alabama-Michigan semifinal last year down to just 17.8 million this year. So that's 10 million less people watched. And look, it was a Thursday. It was at 6:30. I had some people asking, well, why do you think that was? I said, they didn't promote it very much. Like, did you hear? Like, it felt like last week kind of flew by, and we got to Thursday night, and it was like, oh, there's college football tonight? Oh, the semifinals tonight? And I get why they did it, right? Like, you're playing this late into the year. The NFL goes, hey, Saturday and Sunday, that's our time. We got the wild card games. Like, we got NFL playoff games Saturday and Sunday. You ain't playing in our area. So college football playoff had to kind of take Thursday and Friday. And look, Thursday night games for, all year long, or Thursday night NFL games. We have some college games. Like, you would think, okay, people would be conditioned to it. But I just think, in my opinion, they didn't promote it a lot. I had just multiple people on Thursday tell me, we got a college game tonight? Like, so we'll see. Have not seen the numbers yet from the Cotton Bowl, but I assume those were pretty strong, especially when Texas made it a game, and it was pretty close down the stretch. So, hey, congrats on a great season for Texas. Congrats to Tennessee for making the playoffs, and Georgia, but none of them win the national championship. And, let's be real. If Ohio State wins it like they are expected to, that's back-to-back Big Ten titles from Michigan and Ohio State winning the national championship. And now, all the SEC versus Big Ten talk, the Big Ten starts to get a little bit of leverage here in the conversation. But I will say the SEC is still the standard, because even with them not playing for it this year, it will be 13 of the last 19. The SEC has won the national championship of football. NFL draft will be coming up in a couple weeks. The SEC will once again lead the nation in most draft picks from a conference, as well as most first-round picks. If you watch the NFL playoffs over the weekend, my goodness, just SEC talent all over. Jaden Daniels, name them: Derek Stingley Jr., Will Anderson, Ladd McConkey, Kamari Lassiter. I mean, SEC guys all over the field. And then look at the TV ratings. 15 of the 20 highest-rated games in college football this year were SEC games. The top two were both matchups between Georgia and Texas. And you talk about expectations for next year, Georgia and Texas both project to be playoff teams again. So does Tennessee. And then you got teams like Ole Miss, A&M, South Carolina, LSU all knocking on the door. The SEC didn't get their roses this year, but they expect to be back winning a national title next year. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. But first, a quick minute here for our friends over at TurboTax. And I want to remind you guys about Intuit TurboTax. Taxes is dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms and waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back. Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who is matched to your unique tax situation, an expert who is backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is Taxes. It is Intuit TurboTaxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Again, that is TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And now we got to jump into some player news outside of just the college football playoff. The SEC's done, so we're done talking college football playoff. In our perspective, the college football season ended. But anyway, let's get to some of the news we didn't get to. Some of the news that came out on Friday. We told you guys on Friday's show that Carson Beck was indeed entering the transfer portal and not going to the NFL draft. A little shocking there. And then it was only hours later, Carson Beck officially announces he is heading to Coral Gables to go play for Miami. So Mario Cristobal gets a big-time quarterback pickup, and Carson Beck from Georgia. Now, look, he's got a personal reason for picking Miami. He does date Miami women's basketball player Hannah Cavender. And for the spring, the high-profile couple, they were posting on their social medias and all that about, being together and making headlines and all that. So you got to think that, she probably got him a pretty good NIL deal. And the report comes out from WSVN7 News in Miami that Carson Beck will get a $4 million NIL deal from Miami for just 1 year. Again, Miami hoping they could strike gold. Cam Ward was awesome for them this year, was a Heisman Trophy finalist. They just fell short. They just need to, they're in that same boat as Ole Miss and Colorado. It's like if you could have just won one more game, you would have been in there. Georgia insiders reporting Beck earned the same amount he's getting from Miami, $4 million this past season with Georgia. So it's not like it's a huge upgrade in pay for him. But other schools did try to get into the ring for Beck, but it seemed like Miami was just going to be his landing spot. Pete Thamel saying on Pat McAfee's show on Thursday, he said, your high-end guys, in terms of transfer portal guys, I've heard numbers eclipsing $3 million this year in this market. We're at a confluence of the market path where the places that had large NIL stashes, basically these guys can double dip. You can unload all the NIL money you have because you have revenue share money coming. right now it's almost like the market is flooded and guys are getting overpaid. So best of luck to Carson Beck moving on to Miami, but he's dead to the SEC now, right? And if you're a Georgia fan, like, hey, good luck, but not really a lot of luck there, Carson Beck. Hope Miami does not win big with you. All right, other news over at Georgia. Dalen Everett, one of the big pieces in the defensive backfield the last 3 years, announced he is returning to Athens for his final year of eligibility. He's a former 5-star recruit in the class of 2022 and becoming a big-time playmaker in that secondary for Georgia, and was really good in the SEC championship game, but had the decision to declare for the NFL draft or return for another year. And he's coming back to Georgia. So I know Bulldog fans will like that one. All right, other transfer portal news. Over at Missouri, they're adding to their tight end room with Colorado State transfer Vince Brown. Posted the news on social media. His college career was originally set to end, but because of the NCAA's decision to allow JUCO transfers, he gets another year of eligibility. So he joins a Mizzou program that will look to capitalize off of his production. Again, tight end Vince Brown, transfer from Colorado State. Over at South Carolina, they picked up a commitment from former Bowling Green defensive lineman Devontae Miles, 6'5", 280 pounds, from the state of Michigan. Registered 11 tackles, 2 of them solo this past season. During his career, he has recorded 26 tackles. So some potential there for him. See if he can hit that there. Also, on Friday, Alabama linebacker Justin Okoronkwo announced he is heading to South Carolina. Former 3-star recruit, originally committed to Nick Saban before Kalen DeBoer took over, was ranked as the number 1 recruit from Germany in last year's class. Was the number 47 linebacker. So he will head to Columbia, see what he could do over there for the Gamecocks. Over at LSU, they picked up a commitment from Texas A&M tight end Donovan Green. Former 4-star recruit, was the nation's 4th best tight end in the class of 2022. He will have 2 years of eligibility remaining, looking for a fresh start there in Baton Rouge. LSU needing the tight end help. They're bringing in Bauer Sharp from Oklahoma, and they're hoping he and Donovan Green can help replace the production of Mason Taylor, who's heading off to the NFL. All right, how about Ole Miss? They were busy the last few days. First, they picked up a commitment from Auburn offensive lineman Percy Lewis. Spent the first 2 FBS seasons at Mississippi State and then Auburn, and he's back on the move. Started 5 games for Auburn last year, has played in 37 games across his 3-year career. Will have 1 year of eligibility remaining, taking use of that 5-year JUCO ruling. Other commitments they've gotten. Well, they've gotten Arkansas guard Patrick Kudus, Charlotte guard P.J. Wilkins, UAB guard Delano Townsend. They have loaded up in the portal on that offensive line. Ole Miss has. How about in the backfield? Ole Miss picked up veteran running back Jordan Simmons via the portal. Former Akron running back Jordan Simmons, 6'2", 192 pounds, hopped on the scene as a freshman with Michigan State back in 2020. And he will have 1 year of eligibility remaining. Also, Ole Miss picked up a commitment from JUCO running back Trey Hall over at Mississippi Gulf Coast. He 5'11", 185 pounds. He'll have 4 years of eligibility left coming this fall. Of course, with the new JUCO rule, several other schools were in on him. He rushed for over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns this past year. Some Ole Miss guys moving on. How about former Ole Miss O-lineman Mana Taimani, transferring to Colorado, and a former Ole Miss wide receiver Aiden Williams is transferred to Mississippi State. So he will switch sides in the Egg Bowl, leaves Oxford after 2 seasons in Lane Kiffin's system. This past year, made 8 appearances, logged 3 catches for 39 yards in weeks 1 and 2. Finished the year seeing limited playing time in SEC play. We'll have 2 full seasons of eligibility remaining. Over at Alabama, former DB King Mack announced he is transferring to Penn State. Tweeted out on social media, "I am back home." So 2 seasons of experience. He will head to Penn State to play for them. Also some news, Nick Saban named to the 2025 College Football Hall of Fame. It was revealed on Friday during college game days, pregame coverage of the Texas-Ohio State game. Saban was very humble, only spoke about all the great coaches or great players who played under him as a great coach. He said, anytime anything like this happens, it's because you had a lot of great players in the organization, a lot of great players, a lot of great coaches, a lot of great support staff. They made a great team. I was happy to drive the bus, but we had a lot of great people on it. So congrats to Nick Saban. A no-duh circumstance of him being named to the 2025 College Football Hall of Fame class. And one more note here real quick over at Arkansas. They are expected to name former Alabama DB Nick Perry as their secondary coach. It was reported by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. He will replace recently departed Deron Wilson, who moved up the ladder, becoming the DC over at Georgia State. So Perry will go as serving as the defensive quality control coach for the Seattle Seahawks, to working with the Razorbacks DBs. He played DB for the Crimson Tide, was a member of Alabama's 2010 and 2011 national championship teams. But Arkansas has not officially made the hiring news as of yet. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. First, I want to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by the GameTime app. And look, if you guys want to attend the national championship game, might just want to go because it's in Atlanta and it's drivable here in SEC country. But GameTime, they've got a new feature on their app called GameTime Picks. That makes getting tickets for events even easier. It's going to filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. GameTime Picks, find tickets for an upcoming event, browse through the deals. It's a breeze. It'll be super easy for you. Go take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download GameTime today. It is last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. All right, as we start to turn the page from football season, we'll still have more transfer portal and, some teams gearing up for spring practice and all that kind of stuff over the next couple of weeks. So we'll definitely keep you guys updated on that. But did want to get into, look, this has been a fun SEC basketball season so far. So not going to talk a ton of hoops here throughout the offseason. Obviously, football is first, and that's king for us. But did want to get to some nuggets from the weekend. Road teams came up big this weekend in the SEC. And first and foremost, want to mention that over at Auburn, Johni Broome, been a major force for Auburn and their start to this season. But according to college basketball insider John Rothstein, Johni Broome, his diagnosis, non-surgical ankle sprain following an MRI Sunday morning. And a timeline has not been reported as of yet, but apparently they said it's a good sign that he's expected to avoid surgery for it. Now, Auburn is off to a 3-0 start in SEC play, number 2 team in the country, and Broome is a big reason why. He leads Auburn in minutes played, points per game, rebounds, assists, blocks, and again, Jeff Goodman saying it was a significant sprain. At least that's what Bruce Pearl told him. But again, from the results, sounds like not going to require surgery. So we'll just see how long this will take for him to get back out there. But is on pace for a career season, averaging a double-double, averaging 2.7 blocks a game. And Auburn starts off 15-1 overall, 3-0 in the SEC. They won at South Carolina on Saturday, 66-63. Over at Arkansas, John Calipari, they're off to a rocky start in SEC play. Arkansas fell at home to Florida, 71-63. And all their 3 conference losses have been to ranked opponents. But John Calipari even admitted post-game, their midweek game this week against LSU, he said he was didn't even know what day it was. He was hoping for Wednesday, but it is a Tuesday night game. So I got a tough one coming up. Didn't even know when we play. I was hoping it was Wednesday, but looks like it will be on Tuesday. So we'll see how the Razorbacks respond with back-to-back road trips coming up to LSU and Missouri. Alabama and A&M, they had a really good one as Alabama victorious on the road, picking up the 94-88 road win over Texas A&M. They raced out to a 52-44 lead entering halftime. And Mark Sears, he was the big catalyst throughout the 15 points in the first half. 3 of 6 from 3. Aggies did wake up and got back into it. They closed the gap to 83-80 on free throws with 3 minutes to go, but Bama went on a 7-0 run, and they got the big victory. So congrats to Alabama. Kentucky, they held on to beat Mississippi State 95-90. They hit 16 three-pointers, second most of the season, to lead them to victory. Jackson Robinson had a breakout game, going 7 for 10 from beyond the arc. Otega Owe added 15 points and 8 rebounds, and a big bounce-back win for Kentucky. And following that road win over number 14 Mississippi State, Kentucky is now 13-3, 2-1 in the conference. And 4 of those 13 wins have come against teams that were ranked among the AP's top 15 in the country. They took down number 6 Duke, number 7 Gonzaga, number 6 Florida, and now 14th ranked Mississippi State. So those are big-time wins for Mark Pope and company. Over at Georgia, they played at home, but they got a much-needed SEC win over Oklahoma, winning 72-62. At halftime, the Sooners led 39-36, so the Bulldogs dominated in the second half. Asa Newell led all starters with 15 points and 5 rebounds, 2 blocks. Bulldogs shot 42% from the field. Sooners shot just 38%, and Georgia out-rebounded Oklahoma 41-33. Tennessee, they bounced back with a big road win over Texas, winning 74-70. They improved to 15-1 on the season, 2-1 in the SEC. Longhorns, they fall 11-5 overall, 0-3 in SEC play. Not a great start for Rodney Terry and company. It was an ugly game. Tennessee turned the ball over 14 times. Guy Ziegler had 4 of those. The Vols were able to hit 43% from 3. Longhorns were just 28% from 3. Next up, the number 1 ranked Vols won't be number 1 when the new poll comes out, but they will head back to Knoxville and take on Georgia on Wednesday. Mizzou, they closed out Vanderbilt with a 7-0 run, improved to 13-3 to remain perfect at home. So congrats to Mizzou. Next up for them, a trip to face Florida. And defense led to offense for Ole Miss as they rolled past LSU 77-65. Ole Miss improved to 14-2 overall, 3-0 in SEC play. It's the Rebels' first 3-0 start in league play since 2018-2019, when first-year coach Kermit Davis was there. Rebels have not been back to the NCAA tournament since then, something Chris Beard and company are hoping to change. And LSU, they fall to 11-5 overall, 0-3 in the SEC. Not where they wanted to be. Ole Miss did force 17 turnovers that led to 23 points in that game. So there you have it. That's the latest from the SEC weekend. Again, not gonna spend a ton of time on SEC hoops, but again, getting into it. These games are all super competitive. The whole conference is loaded with talent, and feels like a lot like football. Like any team could beat any team on any given night. So been a lot of fun to get into. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out. And hey, for your second listen, you could check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin or any of other great SEC teams. Whatever your favorite team is, just search Locked On in that team, and you will find great podcasts with all of our great hosts right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Come on back tomorrow. We'll talk all things Southeastern Conference with you right here.